Story 1. I feel like restaurants have never been the same. Obviously, a bunch closed, but the ones that stayed open have been short-staffed and had worse service ever since. They shift the blame for the reasons, of course. Story 2. The pandemic had a significant effect on people's mental health, and many are still dealing with heightened anxiety, burnout, or feelings of loneliness. Story 3. Quality of service everywhere. Everywhere you go is short-staffed. The employees are exhausted and either still trying their best or have completely checked out. It's like nobody wants to employ anyone anymore. Story 4. Hospitality staffing. Restaurants and hotels realized they could get away with driving a skeleton crew half to death and blame it on no one wants to work, and people would accept it. Story 5. Deliberate understaffing. Companies realized that they could operate on a minimal crew and work them excessively hard. Service and output would be slightly worse, but the staffing cost savings outweighed that. This furthers a general trend of declining quality. I believe that half the companies with signs saying, "Help wanted, please be patient with us while we're short-staffed," aren't actually interested in spending money on more staff. Story 6. Everything got more expensive for some reason, and it was blamed on shortages. Now everything is back in full stock, and nothing went back down in price. Rent, groceries, cars, and mortgages. Story 7. A huge part of me is still stuck in 2019, and I don't feel like I have grown since then. I am a teenager stuck in the body of a 24-year-old, and I don't know how to cover half a decade of growing up now. Story 8. The amount of shadow work I have to do when I get something. I went to the grocery store at 8:30 p.m. and got a large amount of items. There were 4 employees up front, 1 on a register, and 3 monitoring self-checkout. I went to the line where someone was actually on a register, and one of the employees told me, "It's faster in self-checkout." I said, "Maybe, but I don't work for Kroger. I am not going to scan over 70 items and bag them myself because you only have 1 register open. So basically, I am pulling up the coupons, I am getting the item, I am bagging, I am scanning, I am inputting the item, and they are saving money on employees, so why is the price still higher if I am doing all the work?" Story 9. 24-hour businesses. I worked the overnight shift from 2019 to 2024. My already limited options completely evaporated and never came back. If I wanted to go out for lunch at my normal lunchtime of 2 a.m. and not eat at a gas station, it was a 9-hour round-trip drive across 2 state lines. I've been called out for expressing my disappointment in this. You have no right to demand other people give up their night's sleep for you, or something similar. A slap in the face when I'm doing exactly that for them. I came off overnights last year, but I will always be a voice advocating for the same conveniences most of us take completely for granted. Story 10. Everything is now as a service. You can no longer purchase something without some sort of maintenance or monthly fee. Recurring income is the crack cocaine of the investment community. Story 11. Social skills are at an all-time low. I teach community college, and this applies to every age group imaginable. It is not simply a Generation Z issue. Everyone needs to learn how to interact again. Story 12. Hotels no longer offering daily room cleaning. Most large chains will not even enter your room until the 5th day of your stay for tidying. They used to at least make your bed on a daily basis unless otherwise requested. Story 13. Children's ability to read well and do other tasks effectively. All my teacher friends anecdotally claim that teenagers are struggling to read due to remote schooling. Story 14. Facilities that remain closed include toilets and shop changing rooms. These come to mind first. There is no reason at this point other than they don't want the cost and staffing requirements back. Story 15. I live in a pretty large city, and we no longer have late-night services. Fortunately, I no longer work late. I used to bartend 10 years ago and got off around 2:30 a.m. Back then, I'd go grocery shopping or grab a bite to eat at fast food or even at a decent number of late-night places. Nowadays, there are 24-hour grocery stores or Walmart. There is maybe one place to get food late within 3 or 4 miles of me. Everything pretty much closes by 10 p.m. Story 16. Our attention spans. I think TikTok has had a very negative impact on some of our young ones. I am medical scribing to try to get into medical school, and I watched a doctor perform a physical on a 4-year-old boy who didn't look up from his iPad once. He didn't make eye contact a single time with the physician, and the mother thought nothing of it. Every few seconds, he would just swipe up. Not to mention that what he was watching was not appropriate for his age. I heard a swear word more than once. So sad, in my opinion. Story 17. Probably my dental hygiene. I know it's disgusting, I know. I don't have an excuse, just what happened. Fell out of a routine, and I still sometimes forget before I go to bed. Story 18. Sugar is available on a table in a cafe. 90% of the time now you just get tea or coffee as is and have to specifically ask for sugar. It's neither in the saucer nor on the table anymore. Also, so many restaurants no longer have salt on the table. I've taken to carrying my own mini grinder in my handbag. Story 19. The explosion of tinfoil hat-wearing lunatics who believe all the conspiracy theories. Not just the anti-vaccine brigade, but there seem to be far more people around now who believe in the flat earth, deny the moon landings, and basically disagree with science and logic in general. I've still yet to see one that actually looks and sounds intelligent, but they're out there in numbers. Story 20. Bus timetables. So, where I live, buses used to go from Leominster to Hereford every hour. Then, obviously, they reduced them during the lockdown, but for some reason, they kept the new timetable. Story 21. Doctor's appointments. Pre-pandemic, you were shoved in a germy waiting room with a bunch of people. I don't know what happened. Did they learn how to space out appointments? More people died? But it's way better now. No crowded waiting rooms, in my experience at least. Story 22. I work in senior care. It's now almost standard to wear a mask at facilities such as assisted living facilities, independent living facilities, and rehabilitation centers if there is an outbreak of illness, whether it be flu, COVID, or even norovirus. The masks don't block the virus, but they help prevent people from touching their mouths as much. That makes me, as a clinician, happy. Story 23. The pizza place where I used to get drunken 2 a.m. post-bar dinners still hasn't extended their hours to be open that late. Fortunately, there is a new Lebanese place that has good shawarma wraps and is open late, so it's a fair substitute. Story 24. My ignorance of family and friends' true political feelings and beliefs. I wish I didn't know how incredibly toxic and hate-filled they are. It makes family interactions uncomfortable. Story 25. A high number of people are still teleworking. I do not necessarily think it is a bad thing, but many people work from home compared to before the pandemic. Story 26. And maybe this is just a metro area thing, but before the pandemic, there would be only a few delivery people, most of whom were usually employed directly by the restaurant they delivered for. Occasionally, you'd see a bored person sitting on a bench with some DoorDash gear on, but it wasn't very common. Now they're everywhere. Camping on the streets, some literally spread blankets on the sidewalk, set up little charging stations, and hang out. There are hundreds of them, I'm not even kidding. It's wild now. Story 27. Store hours, customer service in general, and the fact that people are not friendly anymore. Social activities have just not gotten back to normal. Not that I was into going to clubs during the pandemic, but our downtown is a ghost town on weekends now, and that is sad to me. Story 28. Driving people speed more than they did before the pandemic virtually everywhere in the United States I've driven, and they are much more aggressive drivers, and that hasn't changed. Police presence on the roads has increased, but only marginally where I've seen. Story 29. Going to the movies. I get it, in the age of the pandemic, everything hit digital streamers because television studios and network companies needed fresh content for people to watch. With the cost of living going up, everyone is now being super strategic about what they go to the theater for, especially if tickets, popcorn, and food at the theater come up to at least $40 to $50 like it is here in Australia. This is why a movie like Dune Part 2 broke box office expectations while Furiosa bombed. The only movies that haven't been supremely affected by the pandemic are general audience and parental guidance movies for the kids. In 2024 itself, we had Inside Out 2, Despicable Me 4, The Wild Robot, Mufasa, and Sonic 3. All of them, barring Mufasa, made profits. Story 30. Just my take. But there's a lack of nuance when it comes to the anti-science crowd. There have always been an anti-vaccine fanatic or a flat earther here and there, but during and after the pandemic, I see more people complaining about flat earthers than actual flat earthers, etc. There are entire social media platforms solely dedicated to debating a certain kind of anti-science crowd. But it is usually just making fun of them. Maybe unintentionally, it also gives someone from this anti-science crowd a platform to speak on, regardless of whether they are viewed negatively or positively. People are giving them a platform and attention like never before. Instead of just saying, okay, go do some research and get back to me. It is, you are such an idiot with idiotic beliefs. People point and laugh, rinse and repeat. It gets nowhere other than getting people clicks on their social media platforms. It is the equivalent of someone with a doctor of philosophy in physics debating a drug addict outside of a gas station. But whatever, I guess. Story 31. Store hours. Any given store, grocery, Walmart, Target, mom and pops. Everything used to be 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. for weekdays and 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. on Friday to Saturday. We seem to be permanently stuck at 8 p.m. on weekdays and 9 p.m. on weekends now. Story 32. Entertainment in general. This could be more regional, but it seems like a lot of local entertainment options scaled back what they offered and raised prices during the pandemic and slow reopening years because they had to, and people supported them to keep them open, and also because they were starved for entertainment. It feels like the quality never bounced back to match the price and energy put into attending. An example is the yearly air show our city has held since I was a kid. It was always pay at the gate, walk around, look at aircraft, talk to pilots and mechanics, get faces painted, buy food, visit other vendor booths, get helicopter rides, listen to live music, then sit on the bleachers or bring your own folding chair to watch the air show. During COVID-19, they switched to a drive-in model to accommodate social distancing, where there is no walking around, but instead you get a reserved spot that matches your vehicle size and your group could enjoy the show. The prices were significantly higher but accepted to cover costs. They never switched back because they make significantly more money this way. Significantly less staff is needed, and less planning is required regarding vendor booths. You're paying way more for a fraction of the entertainment. The same goes for events in general. My husband's grandmother asked us what we were doing, and we said staying home. She seemed shocked because she said they always used to go out to whatever American Legion was hosting dinner, dancing, drinks, a live band, and such. We had to explain to her that any event like that around us in our age group is insanely expensive just to get in and get maybe past hors d'oeuvres, DJ music, and you still pay for all drinks, $8 for beer, $14 for cocktails, and you still need to pay for soft drinks and juice if you're driving. Worse is these places intentionally overbook and offer cheaper standing tickets, so some people get a table and others don't, and it's incredibly crowded. Then there's parking fees if you're driving or, God forbid, trying to get a taxi or paying heavily for Uber on New Year's Eve. The quality is just gone. It's not worth the money being charged. Story 33. Etiquette. People have forgotten how to follow up and stay connected in real life. Replying that they are excited to attend a function, then disappearing. Driving is chaotic. People are passing on the right shoulder and not stopping at stop signs like never before. Story 34. Life in general. I feel like there is this strange haze over everything. Things can be good, but nothing really feels great, and I know I'm not the only one feeling it. It was the start of one big downer of a chapter in history. Story 35. Replying to all emails and sending a proper email. I am your boss. At least try to pretend you understand hierarchy while behind a screen. Just because you typed it on your phone, Gene, does not make it a text. Story 36. I worked during the pandemic. While I understand many people did not work due to the restrictions, I did not feel much different besides the less traffic and the change in news outlook. Story 37. Live events ticket buying behavior. Post-pandemic behavior is to buy tickets much closer to the day of the event than previously. This is nerve-wracking for producers, as they used to be able to sell tickets in large quantities to events 6 months or more into the future. Only the very top tier can do so today. Story 38. Teachers require assignments to be turned in during normal class times. Since the COVID-19 pandemic, Assignments can be due at 1:03 a.m. on Sunday of a 3-day holiday weekend. Forget that. Story 39. 24-hour businesses being 24-hour businesses. Places like Denny's and Walmart used to be open 24 hours. Now they close by 10 or 11 p.m. Even the local donut shop in my area used to be open 24 hours. Their sign says open 24 hours, but they're closed by at least 9 p.m. Story 40. I live in the United Kingdom. My local clinic used to accept appointments at any hour of the program. When COVID-19 hit, they changed it so that you can only make appointments at 8 a.m. and only for that same day. The COVID-19 lockdown is over, and this is still happening. Story 41. What are you even talking about? Nothing has returned to normal. Nothing ever returns to normal after any kind of public crisis. It's from the first few pages of the handbook of the controlling class. Disasters only help the upper classes to exert more control over the lower classes. Please pay closer attention to history. Story 42. A lot of workers became complacent. When people realized they were being thrown to the wolves, so to speak, and companies truly did not care about them while they maintained a lot of operations and got paid very little, it woke people up. The free money for everyone also made people rethink things. Their priorities, realizing that a job is just a job and nothing more. Since then, unions and outward aggression or rebellion in some forms towards employers have become palpable. It's died down some, but it's still there.